Wednesday was filled with a bunch of moves. Let's break them all down next on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome into FPT in 5. As always, make sure to follow and stream us on Spotify. Today is Thursday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I am Frank Sanford, joined by Scott White. And let's start with Freddie Freeman, who signed a 6-year, $162 million deal with the Dodgers. Scott, we already knew that Freddie Freeman is amazing. Does this actually do anything for his value? Are you moving him up in the ranks?
I don't think it does, not in a meaningful way. I mean, you could say that Dodger Stadium is a better home run park than the one he was previously playing in. You could argue whether the lineup context with the Dodgers is better than it was with the Braves. You could kind of squint and see room for Freddie Freeman to improve around the margins, but how much room does he really have to improve, really? I mean, he's just so bankable, so consistently delivering studly numbers in basically every category but stolen bases. And he's not a total zero for stolen bases at that. So it's a huge move in terms of real world baseball, but for fantasy purposes, I don't know. I mean, I was higher on him to begin with. I see him as a late first rounder more than an early second rounder. Maybe others will join me in that now that he's signed. But I don't really think where he signed should have that much to do with it.
All right, well, let's talk about a player who actually gained a bunch of value on Wednesday, and that was Kris Bryant. He signed a 7-year deal with the Colorado Rockies. And look, we know what Coors Field can do to players. So, Scott, how far are we moving Kris Bryant, not only up in third base ranks, but overall?
Way up. I mean, I was saying for Freeman that it's a lot of these big baseball moves don't end up having a big impact in fantasy, but this one is completely transformative for Kris Bryant's value. It comes at a time when I was really beginning to question his viability, if he would remain productive, because his ability to impact the ball, his average exit velocities they're not just middling, they are suspect, and they've been suspect for years. And with the new ball last year, presumably it'll be implemented more consistently this year. Just how long can he keep that going? But going to Colorado and the BABIP boost he's going to see from that park, I mean, anybody who doesn't bury himself with strikeouts has a chance to be a 300 hitter in Colorado, because that's just how much it helps you on balls in play. So now we're talking about potentially Kris Bryant as a 300 hitter, and it's not a stretch in the thin air to see him get back to 30 home runs, even with those suspect exit velocities. I mean, I mentioned the exit velocities for Bryant. They're not that different from Nolan Arenado. The two profile very similarly. So the change in numbers we saw from Arenado last year going from to Colorado, St. Louis, it could be just the opposite for Bryant now that he's going to Colorado.
All right. Earlier in the day, we saw a pretty massive trade. Matt Chapman shipped over to the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for 3 prospects and a reliever. Scott, all of a sudden, third base is starting to look a little bit better. What do you think about this move, Matt Chapman to Toronto?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even mention for Bryant. He's now ahead of Nolan Arenado in my rankings. So he's now
top
borderline top 50 player for me now. So that alone lengthens the position. And Chapman, it's really going to depend on how he bounces back another year removed from the torn labrum in his hip, because last year we saw it impact how hard he impacted the ball. We've seen a strikeouts balloon, but recently as 2019, he hit 36 home runs, and it wasn't a cheap 36 home runs. Like, he crushed the ball that year. And if he can get back to that, I'm not sure if it matters whether he's playing in Toronto or Oakland, but of course, Toronto, better place to hit, much better lineup context. It makes me even feel more bullish about drafting him if I get burned early at third base.
All right, Scott, your beefcake, that's what you've called him, the beefcake. Kyle Schwarber signed with the Phillies on a 4-year deal. I don't think that this affects his value much. Like, he's going to hit bombs no matter where he goes. I actually really want to ask you about Seiya Suzuki. So I'm going to skip Kyle Schwarber for now. But Seiya Suzuki, Japanese star, comes to the Cubs, signs a 5-year, $85 million deal, and last year in Japan hit .317, 38 homers, 9 steals. How much of this do you actually see translating to Major League Baseball? Are you excited about Seiya Suzuki?
look, the numbers never fully translate from the Japanese league or the Korean league. Japanese is considered higher, but even so, and the numbers never quite translated. There's a lot of differences between the two games. And, a lot of times we've seen players come over from that league and be total busts. I like Suzuki's chances more than most. And a couple of reasons for this. One, his plate discipline is exceptional. So, he's going to have to adapt to higher velocity in the majors, but that's going to give him the leg up in that regard. And the bigger reason is like his swing is more suited for our style of play. It's more of an uppercut swing. It's more of a swing geared for power. There's a lot of flat swings across the Pacific. Just that's the style of play for them. Here it's more about power, and he produced a lot of long home runs with that swing over in Japan. So I have him as a top 30 outfielder. I think the upside for Suzuki is similar to what we saw from like Jesse Winker last year. In fact, this year with Winker in Seattle, I might actually take Suzuki ahead.
Oof. All right. Nice hot take. Spicy there from Scotty. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.